Yeah, it is so hard, especially for early entrepreneurs, because when someone comes up, they'll say at the same time, wow, Toby, EyeVerify is doing so great job on that. And me and the company become one, right? And so they're complimenting me and the company, and then it becomes really weird. And what you end up doing is you want to really take this facade, you want to polish it, make it look really good on the outside, but your backstage, what you know is going on back is a mess. And you don't realize everyone else's backstage is also a mess. You only know that your backstage is a mess. So you see everybody else's front stage.
Yes.
Right? And so I think one of the important things for entrepreneurs to do is being willing to open up the curtains a little, like, no guys, it's chaos back here. I'm afraid, I'm scared, I don't know have all the answers. I'm failing a lot of different areas. Because we're all feeling that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It is not the polished front.
Wow.
That is a rally.
Want it with me, I'm at the top, that's 1, not 2 or 3. This real life, baby, don't make believe. I just make it look easy like ABC. I'm on it 20.
Hey, what's up, good people? Welcome back to Student Entrepreneur Season 3. I am your host, Zeke Wanganga, and your favorite storyteller around the city. On this show, we dive into real stories of founders, funders, and builders who are shaping underdog cities, uncovering what it truly takes to launch, grow, and scale a business. Whether you're an entrepreneur or just someone who wants to learn about entrepreneurship or invest, we have founders who can give you different aspects of entrepreneurship. And as I always say on this show, there's no BS, just real people, real stories, and practical insights you can use. Now, today is a very exciting episode for me because the guest I'm about to bring on today, I've been knowing of him, I think, for the past 6 years, even when I was in college. And he's one of the OG entrepreneurs. When you hear his name, you're going to know who I'm talking about. So the guest I have today, I'm going to be sitting down with Toby Rush. He's a KC founder. He had one of the biggest exits in 2016 when he sold EyeVerify to Alibaba. Now he's building Ideem, tackling how we think about identity and trust in tech. In our conversation, we'll just be talking about his journey, but also be digging into the playbook, how to raise capital the right way, how to scale, when to exit, and how to know when it's time to move on to the next venture. Toby also shares what founders should understand when we're working with VCs or angel investors. So please help me make welcome the one and only Toby Rush. How you doing, Toby?
Doing well, Zach. Great to be here.
Yes, thank you for being on the show. How's your day been? Travels? I know you've been traveling a lot.
I have been traveling a lot. I've been a lot in Southeast Asia and the Middle East most recently. So enjoying my trips over there. Middle East is particularly interesting. I've not previously spent a lot of time. So Saudi Arabia and UAE in particular.
Have you been to any Riyadh season boxing matches?
I have not yet. I'll keep that on my list.
If you ever get a ticket, let me know. I'll be a cameraman. I don't mind pulling up. I like boxing. So, but Toby, thank you for being on the show. So for those who don't know who Toby is, just give us just a little bit of your journey on how you got to where you are today for those who don't really know your story.
Sure. So I'll go rewind quite a way just because it is an interesting origin story. Like I grew up on a small farm in Kansas. So, when I grew up, I would have not even known what an entrepreneur was. But the reality was I grew up in the most entrepreneurial environment you could ever hope for, right? My dad was a farmer. So he was the CEO, the COO, the CFO, right? Everybody, my friends, their dads were farmers or they had a small business. And so really it's an incredibly entrepreneurial environment where people kind of chart their own course. They don't really have a boss. And so that was simply the environment that I grew up in of like, oh, well, of course you want to, own and manage your own thing as a part of your profession. Even when I was young, having money meant freedom. And I'm any kid, like I want to have freedom. I want to be able to do things that I want to do. And so when I was in 5th grade, I started raising pigs. And, so dad said, hey, I'll buy the pig. I said, yeah, you had to buy the pig. He'll pay for the feed. If I did chores and split the vet bill. Like I was gonna do chores anyway. Like, sure, why not?
Why not?
And then, so did that a couple times. Those had babies, sold those, did that. Ended up, throwing hay in middle school. And by the time I was in high school, I had my own hay crew. So people would just kind of call me and say, hey, Toby, get your crew and go put the hay up in the north lot and put it over in the barn. And so I would just do those kind of natural things. By the time I was a senior, I had my own little straw business where I would take 25 bales a time into the sale barns and get a buck a bale. And it cost me 13 cents to put up.
Whoa.
Right. And so just early on, it's always hustling, always looking for things. Leadership, which kind of came natural. So it was always easy for me to organize groups, kind of step out, approach folks of, hey, does this need to be done? I can go do it. So early.
When you say Kansas, what part of Kansas was this?
So it's far northeast Kansas.
Okay.
So if Kansas is almost a perfect rectangle, a little squiggly, way up in the northeast corner. I literally lived up in one of the squigglies. So not too far from St. Joseph, Missouri.
Okay.
In fact, funny. So St. Joe is the big town.
It is, yes.
Right? When I was growing up.
Okay.
Kansas City was like, whoa, so big. Like, how could I ever live in something so big as Kansas City? And now I've spent time in, in London and Beijing and Sao Paulo and in Tokyo and Singapore. And I'm like, oh, Kansas City's kind of quaint. It's nice and small, not too big.
Yes.
So yeah, my perspective on the world has changed.
Yes. The more you are exposed, it's kind of interesting that I would not have imagined that you were a farmer as a kid, not in tech. Like that is such, the connection is not like, what is the connection to there?
Yeah. So I think the connection is engineering. So I was always fascinated by how things work. Right. So if you look at a massive combine, I remember I was in middle school, maybe high school, and I looked at a combine and I was blown away by the complexity. When you think about, so a combine or a harvester, right? A harvester is the thing that's going out there and it's got the head that turns in the front end is pulling in the wheat or the soybeans, the corn, and there's these blades that are cutting and it kind of pulls them in and then it kind of thrashes all of the stalks and the leaves and it ends up with the seed, so let's say corn, goes up into the bin and then the bin gets augered out into a truck. That entire process happens because a single piston turns in a circle, right? So you got your drive shaft of your engine.
Yes.
So it blew my mind of like, oh my gosh, I've got a crankshaft with a piston that goes up and down that makes this entire harvester work. Like it just blew my mind, the complexity and the engineering. So that was kind of how my mind kind of worked. And so mechanical engineering was undergrad. At Kansas State University. So a K-State guy studying engineering. In my junior year, we started doing programming. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is so creative, so freeing. I joke that mechanical engineering is like studying the constraints of the world, right? How fast can you spin a wheel? How much compression can concrete handle? How much heat can transfer through a material at a given time?
Yes.
All these things of the physical world. And they're always constraints. So you're always looking at the constraints. Then you get into software and it's as big as you can imagine, right? So I definitely have a creative side to me. And so I've got this kind of creativity that was always like in mechanical engineering, there's just nothing there.
Yes.
Then I get into software and I'm like, it's as big as you can dream it. But then there's stone cold logic to make it work. And so left brain, right brain just fired really, really well. In software. And so coming out of school, I did graduate with mechanical. I didn't want to change my degree at that point. But I started working with Accenture doing software development. Okay. So got into tech, really early on, super deep in, just some big software implementations and then ended up joining a startup. This was in Houston. So met my wife at K-State. We moved to Houston. She went to law school. I was with Accenture for a while, doing the kind of consulting route and then joined a startup. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like this super hype, fast pace, kind of high trust.
When was this? Was this before the dot-com bubble or was this?
This was actually before. So this would have been 2001.
Okay.
Yeah. So it would have been, like 2002, 3 is kind of really 1, 2, 3 is when the bubble. So it was right before then. So of course, but just fell in love with kind of what a startup was. And that's where I even first heard the term entrepreneur. This is entrepreneur. I'm like, that's kind of cool. I think I would like that. That was all in Houston.
Right.
Came back to Kansas City in 2003 and didn't have kids at the time. My wife was a lawyer, so she was able to provide for the family.
Yes.
And like, hey, if I'm ever going to try my hand at this startup-y thing, now's the time. And so 2003 is like, great, I'm going to give it a shot. And so the very first company we started, we did with actually my brother-in-law named George. We started the company using initially RFID, so it's kind of radio frequency identification, kind of industrial warehousing, but ended up doing cameras on forklifts, which is kind of where the product ended up. And we would automate the data collection for forklift drivers in big warehouses. And the aha we had was, the forklifts move everything, right? And the humans basically barcode scan the pallet, barcode scan the bay. Barcode scan the pallet, barcode scan the dock door. If you could automate the barcode scanning, the drivers loved to drive. They hated the barcode scan, right? And so the joke was that we turned forklift drivers into race car drivers because they could drive as fast as they wanted. And we put a camera on the front of the truck. And so we could look for the pallet, look for the label, scan the barcode. So we knew what pallet they picked up. And then we put 2D barcodes in the ceiling. And so as you looked up, wherever you saw a 2D barcode, a QR code, they were surveyed, so you knew exactly where those were, and then you knew where you were in relation to that barcode, so you knew your own indoor GPS system.
Huh. So like because I'm seeing hardware and software in this. So what part did you played software, hardware, or you did both?
A little bit of both. Hardware is hard. It's the only company.
That's why it's called hardware.
Yeah. Oh man. Anybody who does hardware, you have my sympathies. Yeah. So so George was the CTO, so he was actually much more technical than I was. And so we had to do both. Actually, the hardest thing about hardware in that particular case was forklifts are tanks, and they have such amazing G-force. Putting electronics on a forklift is no joke. Whew. They would just destroy the stuff that we put on there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang. So now tell me this. So how did you say, okay, let's go do stuff with the forklift? How did the idea come? What was the research for finding the problem and solving that?
Sure. So we were working with some warehousing and supply chain using RFID to track assets. So the startup that I worked with in Houston had used this kind of very new technology. And I thought it was a really interesting technology. Like, hey, who else could use this? I somehow got networked into some warehousing and logistics and manufacturing. So we're using RFID simply to track assets. And we realized that forklifts actually moved everything, right? And so if you could instrument the forklift, the thing that was moving it, you would have much less cost and much better tracking coverage. So that was kind of one of the insights of the ahas of, wow, if you could actually just equip the forklift with the sensing information, that would actually be the best tool.
So talk me through it. So do you guys exit the company? Did you raise funds for that, or did you just get revenue immediately? How did that?
Yep.
What was that?
We had a little bit of revenue. That was the first company I ever raised money into. I think the first round we did was probably 2005. So we started the company in 2003. So initially it was just bootstrap, very little revenue. And then, hey, we were really starting to grow, raised some capital in 2005 and then ended up selling that in 2009. So we sold that to a private equity. Private equity really liked kind of the concept of what we were working on. They wanted to use us as the platform team. So kind of, hey, use you guys and we want you guys to go buy other smart forklift technology companies. And so it was kind of an early exit for us. It wasn't a huge exit. An interesting story again that I tell sometimes as far as the entrepreneurs of why to have really good boards or really kind of honest people around you. So it was 2009, right after the financial crisis. So 2008, the whole world blew up.
That's right.
Had a really good board, and the board just hammered me on, hey, what are you going to do? How are you going to cut costs? How are you going to be careful? And I'm like, well, we're doing pretty well. We're actually profitable. We're ahead of schedule. We've got all these big contracts with folks like John Deere and Boeing and Cesta and like Pioneer, like really big blue chip companies. And like, so far, we're not seeing any slowdown. And they're like, well, you will. And when you do, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, first of all, what would we see? What are the red lights that we can kind of put out? And when we see that, we'd have to look at all these different things. We probably have to let these people go. And it's like, great, we want you to put a plan. Tell us what the red light indicators are and stack rank everyone in your company. I'm like, really? Like, you just heard we're profitable? And like, we were already, this is in September. Like, we've already met all of the year's goals.
Yeah.
This was in 2008. And they're like, yes, we've never seen anything like this. You can execute in, if something happens, right? If chaos happens, something blows up, it's almost impossible to put a plan together in that phase. So you can execute, but putting a plan together is you're already behind the eight ball. And sure enough, 4 or 5 months later, we started having customers push projects. They had great ROIs. Hey, we're just not spending any capital, right? Love your product, love what you're doing. Yes, all the business case that is there. We're just not spending any capital at all on anything. And I'm like, oh, dang.
Okay.
And so went back to the board and said, hey, red lights tripped.
Sorry.
We're going to make these cuts, had to let a third of the company go, pulled way back. But that allowed us to basically stay profitable, to kind of keep things working. And so when the private equity came and talked to us 6 months later, they saw how well we managed that. And they were like, wow, you did a really good job managing the company. And I'm like, honestly, it was the board. If that was just me,
I'd have
had no idea.
Cruising on dreams.
Yeah. And then so that was a great example of kind of what the board literally saved the company. Because I don't think I would have seen that coming until it was already there.
Gotcha.
Right. So having that heads up. And then even when the private equity came, they made a good offer. It wasn't like it was like crazy rich kind of high valuation.
Right.
And initially when I looked at it, I was like, man, okay, that's okay, but I think we've got so much more potential and all that. And one of my board members came up and He's like, Toby, you initially seemed really excited about this private equity, what they wanted to go do, the idea of being a platform company, going buying these other companies to kind of build something bigger. He's like, yeah, I am. He's like, well, then why don't you seem very excited right now? It's like, well, I think we're worth more than that. And he looked at me, he's like, oh, I get it. So you're being greedy. I'm like, huh? He's like, you just told me that you like to keep the company you want to buy with.
Right.
You like what they want you to go do. I know what they offered is fair. I agree it's not rich, but it's a fair offer. The only reason you wouldn't want this deal is because you want more money. And I'm like, whew, wow. Okay.
This is true.
It is. And as I really took a step back, I was like, you know what? You're right. Like, it's my first exit. I was really young. I was going to do it again. To be able to go work for a private equity, to be able to return, so all my investors doubled or tripled their money. They were great. They were super happy with.
Wow.
In 2009, right? Not even 12 months after them. So they've got getting cash back. Like nobody was giving cash back. And so if I had not had a really good board member that was willing to come up and kind of punch me in the nose and said, Toby, snap out of it.
So let me pick things apart a little bit. So raising capital back then, right? If you're able to disclose, and also how did you raise those capital? What did you tell the people? And how many investors do you have? And like what percentage did you have of the company versus what the investors had back then? Kind of walk me through that process. Like what was that?
Just kind of clean the cobwebs out. As the very first round really was a friends and family. There's some older business guys that I knew. Said, hey, I've got this idea. Here's what I want to go do. And their comment was classic. I still remember this today. Is like, so Toby, you're a lot smarter than we are. We have no idea what you're talking about. This tech stuff's way over our head. They're kind of classic business guys.
Yes.
We have a friend that does understand the space. We'd like to introduce you to him. If he likes what you're doing, then we're in. But I would tell you the thing that we're concerned about is we have given a lot of money to, young guys like yourself over the year. And usually, one or more things of three happen. You either lose our money, you lose your friends, or you lose the company, right? If you just lost our money, we'd be okay with it. When you lose your friends and you lose your spouse because you've gotten so wrapped up in the thing that you're doing, like even if you gave us our money back, we felt like we're losers in that, right? So we don't want you to lose your family. We don't want you to lose your friends, right? It's really just a really good reminder. So my first investors were very upfront of, hey, be careful.
Wow,
like this is enough rope that you might hang yourself. So the guy who actually joined my board, he liked the idea. He's the one who also kind of punched me in the nose at the end of like, hey dude, this is actually a pretty good deal. You probably should take this.
Wow.
So that was the very first group that came in.
Yeah.
I think I did another round later. The Mid-America Angels used to be kind of a really big angel group. Had come in. There was no KC Rise. There was no Flyover Capital at the time. It was really just the angel group. And then we had a strategic out of the East Coast came and invested as well.
So give us a ballpark of how much you were able to raise back then.
Oh my gosh. I think the very first round was 250,000. That was kind of from a group of about 5 or 6 of these guys. The next round with Mid-America, I think it was 1.5, 1.7 million.
Okay.
I think that might have been it. So we raised about 2 million.
About 2 million.
I think we still had, and I really don't remember. I mean, so myself, co-founder, leadership team, I think we probably still had 60, 70% of the company.
Wow. At the end of it. Wow. And at the exit, everyone still got the investment back and more.
Oh yeah. So everyone at least doubled their money, if not tripled their money.
Wow. Okay. So then let's fast forward. Wow. Okay. Because the reason why I'm digging deep, because I know everything has incremental progress, right? It's how you built one is the same way you're probably going to be the next one. And then
improve upon it. Yeah.
Yes, improve upon it, right? So then you get to EyeVerify. How did you get to the EyeVerify idea, and how did you get involved in raising funds, and how did that come about?
So the link between Rush tracking and EyeVerify really is computer vision, right? So I'm fascinated by computer vision. So using computers to understand the world around us, I think we are scratching the surface, even today, at what we can do with computer vision. So this was in 2011, and I'm like, this is really, really cool.
I think the iPhone just came out maybe three years before.
2007, 2008. So it would have been 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4 years, yes.
The iPhone had just came out, and there was someone here in town said, hey, there's a professor down at UMKC working on some really cool stuff using computer vision. You should go take a look at it. I'm like, sure, why not? So went to UMKC, met up with Dr. Reza Derek Shani, And he showed me this demo using regular cameras to look at your eye as a biometric. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. Where would you guys think this should be used? And their response was, well, we think it's immigration, airports, and military. And as an entrepreneur, I'm like, ooh,
those are tough.
Those are hard. Like, really? And so I kind of went away. I thought a little bit more about it. And I'm like, what if we did passwords on smartphones? Like, that feels like such a better use case. If I could just look at my phone and it could look at my eyes and replace the password, that would be fascinating. Now, it's hard for most people listening to this. Rewinded to 2011, not many people remember what iPhones were like, or any phone was like back in 2011. Their banking apps, you could just look at your account. You couldn't even do anything. You just look at it. But my trajectory was like, hey, we're going to do everything on these devices. Like, we're going to do business on them. We're going to do healthcare on them. We're going to do banking. We're going to do payments. Like, it's going to be our interface into the world. And that wasn't the only one who thought that. Lots of people thought that. I think the angle that I saw is the way that we authenticate. It's bad today. It's only going to get worse. It's going to proliferate kind of beyond measure.
Before you, so I want you to go forward, but I want to know this because there's only a few people who have the ability to cast a vision of what the future might look like and believe in it enough to be able to take a stake in it, right? Those Steve Jobs, right? Those are examples someone can say, okay, this is what the future is going to look like. Whether you like it or not, it's going to happen now when it happens. And you just said, before the iPhone or all these Androids or smartphones were smart enough to do all these things, you said, we're going to do everything on this device. What made you come to that conclusion, and how did you cast that vision?
Sure. I think it wasn't just there were lots of people saying these devices were the future.
Yeah.
Right. So that wasn't a unique thing for me.
Yeah.
I agreed with it. I think what I saw, and then honestly, what I think I've done for a lot of my careers is what are big waves that are coming? And then what are the gaps or holes that those waves are going to create? So I think at that time, I would have said phones are inevitable. I couldn't have predicted how capable they would be, but they were going to be some version of what they are today. And with that, we're going to be doing everything on them. And so, again, kind of seeing that trend, kind of seeing kind of this technology, if we could use these, at the time, selfie cameras to automate that piece. I can't remember the exact time where that came from, but yeah, I remember clearly when they told me what they thought the use cases were, I'm like, yeah, no way.
Okay.
And then, so then it was kind of seeing that trend line of like, oh, we should do password. And people thought we were crazy. We're like, well, if that was such a good idea, Apple and Google would already be doing it. And I'm like, I don't know. I think we should give it a shot. And so because I'd had a previous success, some of those other investors like, sure, we'll give you some money. Go give it a shot.
I mean, you give them money out of when everything crashed.
Right. Yeah. So, having a previous success definitely helps. Ended up, I think the very first round we did was just over $1 million. So again, a little bigger. And the idea was really, let's just get it out of the lab. Can we get a working prototype working? That was in Q1 of 2012. Q3 of 2012, so just 9 months later, Apple buys a company that has a fingerprint scanner. I'm like, oh, wait a second. Did I just choose the wrong modality? Because you look at your device and you touch your device, the two things that you do.
That's right.
I made the bet on the looking at the device, and Apple just bet on touching the device. And I remember like, oh, did I just completely miss this one? And one of my board members is like, dude, Toby, if Apple is consumerizing biometrics on smartphones, you're just a different approach. They're absolutely, you're spot on. So I'm like, okay, this is good. And then that following spring, they came out with Touch ID. And the year after that, they came out with Apple Pay. Right. And so just right place, right time. Right. And so we were, in fact, when we first, I remember the categories we looked at as far as market segments was banking and financial services, healthcare, and just enterprise companies.
Right.
Right. So enterprise that want their employees to log in, healthcare, a lot of sensitive data, or banking and payments. And as soon as Apple did Apple Pay, we literally said, we're shutting all those down, and all we're going to do is go focus on payments and banking.
So what was that? Talk to me the dynamic of having a doctor who is research and you an entrepreneur who is going out looking for funds and saying, this is what we're going to push it. What was that dynamic getting them to like, we got to do this today. We need to talk to me about selling the vision and then work on the product.
Yeah. I was super lucky. Dr. Reza Derekshani is just a prince of a guy. He's wicked smart. And we developed a really deep trust and a friendship where he trusted me on the business side. Even the way you framed it is actually really good. I'm an entrepreneur. He's an inventor. right? And so he invented some really interesting things, even not just that, the multiple things he invented along the way. I'm an entrepreneur that sees the gaps and holes in the markets and then can raise capital, raise a team, kind of recruit, pilots and customers. That's kind of my skill set. And so really we blended it very, very, very well. So he focused on core technology and kind of invention, and I focused on entrepreneurship and market-facing activities. And again, if we were a year earlier, maybe 2 years ago, there's no way this would happen. So timing was so important.
Yes.
Because once Apple kind of moved forward, we ended up with 60 banks in the U.S. in production using this little technology to replace passwords, including Wells Fargo.
Wow.
Right? So crazy. And so we ended up raising early on. We did like the $1 million early on, and then we raised another $2 million, $2.5 million. That was actually a little bit harder because people weren't convinced yet. Like, well, what's Apple doing? What are you doing?
Exactly.
How do you know this is going to work? Then we got, after that initial 3 or 4 million, we did one more larger round at about 6 million. So we raised a total of about 10 million kind of into the company. And at that point, we'd gotten pulled over into China. We were working with Samsung. We were working with a bunch of hardware manufacturers over in China. And someone said, have you guys talked to Alipay yet? I'm like, we haven't. Like, that is the largest potential customer that we could have in the world. Right. So at the time, they had 800 or 900 million users on using their payment wallet.
Yeah.
Right. So kind of the Alipay app. And I remember like, let's just roll the dice. Let's see what happens. And give a couple people on our board is like, are you sure you're ready? Like, I was like, I think we got to give it a shot. Like, now is the time.
Yeah.
So we called up on Alipay and we got connected, had a couple of really great meetings, and kind of one conversation led to another. And they actually started by wanting to invest in us. We're like, great, that would be an amazing investment, partner kind of for that part of the world. And then right before we signed the docs to make the investment, another investor corporate approached us out of the blue and said, hey, we think you'd fit really well with what we're doing. We'd like to acquire you. So then I go back to Alibaba and flip it from an investment conversation to an acquisition conversation. And those two ended up kind of competing with each other.
So talk to me about this, because I know raising funds is not easy, right? Most of the funds you raised, the 6 million you raised, what was that was all in the Midwest, KC, outside? What was that kind of dynamic, the balance of?
It was a mix. We had some out of Hong Kong. We had some out of San Francisco. Wells Fargo was actually an investor. Sprint back in the day was an investor.
Okay.
Definitely a lot of angels. Flyover did come into that. So Flyover is one of our investors. So they had actually, at that point, had been created. KC Rise. So those were a lot of folks were able to kind of come in at that time.
So talk to me, as I know you already have a backed up like history of saying, okay, I've done this before. But how do you get to investors? How do you know, okay, this investor's going to invest in me? What do you tell them? You know what, this is going to be it, and this is not going to be the one for me.
So I think it's important to differentiate between types of investors, and it's called the capital stack, right? So angels and kind of typically first money in. So angels like a story, right? They want to hear the story. They want to feel like they're a part of the journey. You almost like living vicariously through their investments, because they're typically business people. They believe in the region. They believe in people. And so really coming at it almost as with their head in their wallet for sure, but also their heart. Right. And so they want to feel like they're a part of the journey and kind of contributing in something unique. Once you start to get into what's called institutional capital, so institutional capital would be venture capital, right? So they have raised money and their job is to make money, right? And so it is a different bar. They care about different things. They care about different metrics. They care about the story. They care about your ability to go execute. But at the end of the day, they're in business to make money, right? Angels, sure, they want to make money. But it's much more relational. And so kind of as you're selling and as you're kind of pitching your story, just understanding, what is the driver on the other side? What is the motivator? What is the incentive model that you're dealing with?
So 3-part question. Pitching your company with a pitch deck / dinner, a drink, cocktail, happy hour, conversations. Which one has been the most valuable for you to raise funds, and which has been the most instrumental for you raising funds? What's the best way to get to that?
So ask the question again.
So pitching, I'm going to stand in front of you, pitch with my pitch deck. This is where the feature's going to go. This is what the projections are, versus I'm going to grab dinner with you. Let's talk over a drink. And this is what I'm trying to do.
Right. So you don't often get a full dinner with someone, but you do often get conversation. So a coffee or a relational, especially early on, is actually more impressive than the pitch, because your first money in or you're super early, they're betting on you as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Right? They know you're going to pivot. They know things are going to change. They know it's just going to look different. And so they want to say, hey, can I trust you? Are you nimble on your feet? Are you smart? Are you going to be honest with yourself? Are you going to surround yourself with great people?
Right.
So that is a much easier thing to do over coffee and a conversation to really get to know you. Now, eventually, they're going to want to hear the pitch. They want to get to those pieces, but it's so hard to convey the relational side of it in just a pitch. So it will take both. In your early on, it really is much more relational. But even VCs, right? So VCs, oftentimes, they want to look at the pitch deck to say, is this even in my category? Right? Is it too early? Is it too late? Is it in a market segment that we're thinking about? So they will want to see the deck earlier and possibly a pitch. But that's really the goal of those initial meetings, is to get the next meeting.
So if there's a startup or an entrepreneur, someone wants to be an entrepreneur watching this, trying to put together that pitch deck. I know obviously storytelling is important. The market is important. The financial projection is important. What are the core elements that you were able to do that proved to be the most successful, that you honed in on, and these were the ones that always got you the right people?
Yeah, I'd say understanding a very specific pain point. I always like to sell into big cycles or big waves, right? So again, think about kind of the phone wave, right? So this is a wave that is coming. How do you kind of sell into that or understand the gaps that kind of exist in that area? But it really, it's fairly traditional things you would hear of. What's the real pain point? What is how do you solve that pain point? How broad is that pain point? So what is that market size? And do you have a unique approach that will allow you to go solve that others won't? Right? So again, what is the big pain? How do you solve it? How do you get to market? So kind of what is your go-to-market to kind of get there? And why would you and your team understand the space and be able to execute on this and someone else couldn't?
And I want to ask on the team part, because I know obviously in this space, you're no longer an expert when it comes to inventing EyeVerify. Right?
Sure, at that time I wasn't.
That was not, right? So talk to me about being someone who was not a technical founder, sort of say, or I know you have a backend, but paint a picture where the founder themselves are not technical founders. How do you convince and say, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it, regardless of we're not the ones who have the technology?
I'll answer that in today's context. I think in today's context, it actually is different and actually much better for deep domain, whether you have a technical background or not. The ability for someone who understands a domain to build up a proof of concept MVP with all the coding tools that are out there is actually very realistic. Go back even 3 years ago. They would have to hire engineering. It's going to cost you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 just to go build an MVP. Like, I've been doing this on the side, just playing with it because I love it and I just want to kind of experiment. Like, if you're willing to just jump in and start trying, you could build this in a weekend, like maybe a week or two, but do it on your own. So the deep domain or the idea people, I think have never had a better chance to be able to build a prototype for very little money to get it in front of customers and say, hey, try this. How would it work? How would you see it? So then when you go you don't need to raise money to do that, right? $25 on Replit, maybe $50 with Google somewhere. We're going to get some credits. That's all you need. So if you're willing to spend a couple $100 on a couple platforms, that's all you need.
Wow.
So it has never been a better opportunity for deep domain or idea people to build companies.
So I want to shift gears, but after that, I want to come back to get into Alibaba. Like, what was that conversation? I want to get to that. And I also want to get to Ideem. And you go to Saudi Arabia. I want to get all this, but I want to shift gears a little bit. The personal side.
Sure.
You say your wife was a lawyer. What was the conversation? How were you managing family and doing all these things?
That's great. Yeah. Excellent question. So not only that, I've got 4 kids.
Wow.
And I started the first company in 2003. I had my first kid in 2005. Right. And so when we came back, the kind of the agreement my wife and I had, her name was Joanna. So Joanna and I were like, hey, we don't have kids right now. We wanted to have kids relatively soon. I could try my hand at this little startup thing. But by the time we had our first kid, she could either work full-time, half-time, or stay home. Right. So I didn't want me not being able to provide for the family. To force her to work but to force her to continue to work if she wanted to stay home and be a mom. And so that was in 2003. Actually, she was born in 2004. Ethan's watching. Sorry. Yeah. So he was born in May of 2004. We started the company in basically February, March of 2003.
Okay.
When I got back. So we got pregnant 5 months after we got back. So baby was coming, so the pressure was on, and she decided to stay home. Right. So now I've got a wife and our first kid, and they're at home, and so there's definitely a lot of pressure to be present, provide. Both my wife and I are very strong Christians, so there's this kind of ethos of, hey, how do we put family first, God first, but also recognize God has called us into things, and definitely something He's called me into is a builder. So I love building, I love entrepreneurship, and that is kind of, I come alive when I'm in that space, and so Joanna is amazingly supportive for me in that journey. Then we ended up having 4 kids in 8 years. Okay, so lots of littles. And so as in EyeVerify and these others, it was hard. The stress was crazy. Kids they're hard when they're little. They're just consuming and demanding. And, especially when my fourth one, Isaiah, was born, we would have had, Ethan would have been 6, Hunter would have been 4, Jasmine was 2, and we had a newborn. Wow. So that was 2010. So my youngest was born in 2010. So I started EyeVerify with 4 young kids.
Because as you're talking through your story, it seems like everything was just going smoothly. Everything was going great. Everything was successful. I know it's not that way. Oof. There were days where things were falling apart. It was burning. It was like, why am I doing this? Talk to me through one of those days or a couple of those days that you still had to manage family, had to do business, but things were not working out. What was those days and how did you get over those?
Yeah, I'll give you 2 examples. I think they're really poignant and definitely, people look at kind of my trajectory and like, man, you just had it made. You went from success to success to success. And I'm like, oh, brother, let me tell you, there were some days where I questioned my sanity. My wife questions my sanity. So one example. So when I was doing my first company, Rush Tracking, we had raised a little bit of money. And we were really starting to grow and like grow well. I've talked about like Chevron and John Deere and Boeing, like these were our customers. When you do projects with those guys, you do the work, then you get paid, and they put you on a 60 or 90 day window to get paid your invoice or your receivable. That's the payment terms. So I had to hire people to go do the work, to then invoice, and to then get paid. And so I'm like 4 to 6 months at times, just huge lag. And when I had to start incurring expenses and when I would get paid, we were getting paid and we were doing well and on all that work, but the cash crunch was going to be pretty significant. So I went to the bank and said, hey, I've got signed contracts, blue chip customers, big contract. We're delivering. We have a history of delivering, but I need a line of credit to be able to handle the operating cash, just kind of the cash flow. And they're like, oh, yeah, no problem. That sounds great. No big deal. A few months went by. I was like, hey, where are we at? What are we doing? I was like, yep, I'm going in next week. I'm going to talk to the investment committee. Couple weeks, I go back, hey, where are we at? What are we doing? It's coming. And this would have been, and maybe this ties into the story. So my wife is pregnant with our second. Yes. And this would have been in 2006. And it would have been this summer. So it would have been probably July or August. Finally get a call back and they're like, dude, I'm getting really, really tight on cash. Like, we need to know where we're at. He's like, yeah, come on into the bank. So I go into the bank thinking I'm going to be signing the loan docs. It's like, hey, I talked to the investment committee and, we're going to be able to do a line of credit, just not as much as you need because we're just really concerned about kind of your stage of company and where you're at. And I'm like, I was asking for $200,000. Like, what are you going to be able to do? It's like, well, we can do $20,000. I'm like,
$20,000?
Like that doesn't help at all. He's like, yeah, I'm really sorry. That's what we can do. And I think it's a really good idea. I'm like, no, you don't understand. That doesn't solve the problem at all. And my head is just spinning. I'm like, oh my gosh, like we've got at this point less than a month of cash left in the bank. I've been telling all my investors and all my board, hey, I've got this figured out. We're talking to the bank. They said we should be good. I've got it covered. And, just young and not seeing the signs.
Yes.
And I remember driving home, on I-35, drive by Shawnee Mission Parkway, and my loop was just spinning over and over and over. Like, it's going to blow up. I screwed up. No bank's going to touch me now. I'm 4 weeks from out of cash. I've told all my investors and all my board that I've got this covered, and now I don't. It's all going to blow up. It's all going to blow up. And I called one of my best friends. His name's Tracy. He's like, Tracy, I just screwed up. And I kind of told him the story. He's like, hey, come on over. Let's talk it through. So we go over to Tracy's, sit on his back deck. And what Tracy doesn't do is ask me 20 questions about how we're going to go find more money. What he does do He's like, so Toby, when you kind of started this whole thing, like we all sat down and said, hey, what's really important? What really matters? Like, well, my faith, my family, my friends. He's like, so this whole thing blows up, just goes to zero. Do you think I'll still be your friend? Like, yeah. Like, do you think your wife is still going to love you? Like, yeah. Like, do you think God still has a plan? Like, yeah. Like, then why are you so afraid? Right? And I was like, it really was like, why? And it really was my own ego, right? It was my own pride of, I didn't want to look like a failure. I didn't want to be perceived as a loser, a failure. And looking back, I was able to process a lot more of this. Like the human psyche really struggles with the idea of dying, right? And so when your identity gets wrapped up in that of the company, and so you and your company really become one, and you think your company's about to die, like you literally start to think you're going to die.
Yes.
And people start doing really crazy things because we are good at surviving, right? And that survival instinct kicks in, and sometimes it tells you to do things that you shouldn't do.
That's right.
And so having friends like Tracy that really reminded me in that moment. One of my friends, I love the way he phrases it. He's like, real friends can know your spirit song, right? We all have a song, right? They know your spirit song and can sing it back to you in the dead of night. So in those darkest of times,
yes,
when you've lost the tune, we need friends around us to kind of sing that song back to us. And we're like, okay, no, this is who I am. This is what I'm about, right? And so if it weren't for people like my friend Tracy, and lots of others that can continue to remind me of like, Toby, this is great. You're up on this big stage and you're winning all these awards. You're doing all that stuff. Like you're still just Toby. And sometimes, you need to go take a shower, right? Sometimes you're off base. Or, when it's the lowest of lows, I'm like, no, dude, you're no different yesterday than you were tomorrow. Right? You're the same guy, right? So don't let the kind of the trappings of this world dictate your success.
Wow. Just hearing that from you is just a different perspective, because knowing you and the way you move, no one would ever know that there was parts of life where you were like, this is going to fail and I'm going down with it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important for entrepreneurs to hear about not putting your personality as a person or your whole life into a company.
Right.
They're separate entities.
Yeah.
But once they're tied.
Yeah. It is so hard, especially for early entrepreneurs, because when someone comes up, they'll say at the same time, wow, Toby, EyeVerify is doing so great job on that. And me and the company become one. Right. And so they're complimenting me and the company, and then it becomes really weird. And what you end up doing is you want to really take this facade, you want to polish it and make it look really, really good on the outside. But your backstage, what you know is going on back is a mess. And you don't realize everyone else's backstage is also a mess. You only know that your backstage is a mess. So you see everybody else's front stage.
Yes.
Right. And so I think one of the important things for entrepreneurs to do is being willing to open up the curtains a little, like, no, guys, it's chaos back here. I'm afraid, I'm scared, I don't have all the answers. I'm failing in a lot of different areas.
Right.
Because we're all feeling that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It is not the polished front.
Wow.
That is the reality.
Wow. Okay. So I know also you've been an investor in different companies, a few part of different companies, you advise companies, right? What have been some things you've learned, either being part of companies that didn't go the right way or went the wrong way, or that you would advise not to do? Because I know, so one specific question is this. Some startups grow too fast, right? They get investment, they just grow too fast, and then it kills them, or they manage how to survive out of it. Some companies might not have any funding, and then they scrap, they lose all the money they have. What have you seen in being in the different companies that you've come in and said, oh yeah, there's a lot of fire here. Like, let's put out some of this fires. Like, these are things that are killing your company. You don't even know that's killing your company that you've done to help some other companies.
Yeah. The challenge in answering that well is every company is so different.
That's right.
So it's hard to have kind of a really concise answer. I think on the growing too fast, I think the challenge of early stage entrepreneurs, we want to say yes to everything. And so saying no or firing a customer is really hard. Right? The idea that you would go and fire a customer that you worked so hard to get is just like people get, no, why would I do that?
Yeah.
It's like, because they're a bad customer and they're taking up, they're 2% of your revenue, they're taking up 20% of your time. Like you can't do that. You can't scale, by saying yes to everything. So saying, no more and yes to fewer things, is something the early stage entrepreneurs, as they're starting to figure things out and get things going. On the flip side, a lot of times people the hardest thing for me is you see a really good entrepreneur that has an average idea and just won't let go of it. Right? And it's like they want to keep pushing, they keep pushing, and keep pushing. And again, there's no universal truth in this because in general, I say, guys, set yourself some metrics. Okay, make it out 3 months, 6 months, whatever the time horizon is, right? Be very specific. And if you can't hit these metrics and you keep missing the metrics, you got to ask yourself, is this the right idea? Right? There are lots of ideas. Again, don't think shutting this idea down. Don't think killing this idea is killing you, right? Don't think this bad idea means you're a bad entrepreneur.
Yes.
It's just a bad idea. Move on, right? And that is one of the things as an ecosystem we've gotten a lot better at. We can always do better. But giving people permission to say, hey, I just spent, a year and $500,000 on this idea. It's not a good idea. I need to move on.
Right.
They need to be able to do that. But also, I've given people that advice before. They haven't taken it. And 3 years later, they come out and they're finally making a success. Right. So it's not like there's a perfect thing. Because sometimes if you're really passionate, you got to go with your gut.
Right.
I always tell people to ask as many people as you can, especially if you respect them. But at the end of the day, you can't run a company by committee. You have to make the decision. You have to believe it. And so being willing to take lots of advice, genuinely listen. But at the end of the day, it's in your head, it's in your heart, it's in your gut. And you got to go with it.
This is a good transition to your company because you were doing something with Web3, I believe.
Yep.
And then you ended up not continuing with that. Walk us through that journey of having a company go not the way you wanted to go. Like you just I think you shut it down and then built something different.
I did. That was a hard one in that, I was really excited about just kind of Web3 and the new models of ownership and flexibility. So Apple and Google, to a large degree, and Meta and a few others, have built really big walled gardens. And they want you to stay inside their walled garden. They have really high walls. And that's great sometimes, but it really stifles innovation. Right. And so you can't live in an Apple garden ecosystem and then take that data or your information and go to a Google garden because they're incompatible. Right. Same with Meta, same with, an Amazon. Well, Web3 gives us the ability to take information, data, and things that are about us or that we own and go to different places, to go into an open ecosystem. And so I love that thesis. I still love that thesis. And so the bet was that as people wanted to engage with Web3, they needed the ability to kind of hold tokens, NFTs, different kinds of tokens, not cryptocurrencies. This isn't cryptocurrencies. There's other forms of things that could live digitally in Web3. But the authentication stack to get there was super complex. Like if you've done anything in crypto, the idea that I want to manage my own keys and have a 16-phrase mnemonic phrase that I've got to store somewhere, like people don't want that.
That's right.
That is not why they're getting into Web3. And so we built what I thought a really beautiful product that allowed Web2 users to move into Web3, hold these digital assets, and have various token-gated experiences. With the idea that lots of other people were going to be building token-gated experiences and building use cases that users would hold these things and then be able to use them kind of in an open ecosystem outside the walls. We built a really beautiful product that nobody used because so few use cases developed, right? The whole market kind of stalled. It had too much of a casino culture. Everybody wanted to get rich quick. Buy a stupid picture of a JPEG, a monkey, create this crypto, pump this meme coin. Like that was all nonsense and noise. But unfortunately, it kind of captured too much of the market, ended up tanking. And so I remember my co-founder and I, and that was named Kenny Conklin. Kenny and I kind of looked at each other like, we built a beautiful product. Everybody who uses this loves it, but we are not seeing enough traction. And so we set some very specific, hey, if we don't see A, B, and C, I think it was by October of 22 maybe, we got to shut it down. Right. And so that's what we did. We kind of looked at it. We worked our tail off. And when we got to the end, there's so few people using it. It's like, we're way too far ahead. I still believe, even today, I still like this vision. I'm years ahead. So I actually went back to my investors like, guys, we had $1 million left in the bank. Right. So we had runway. Like more of your money and my time isn't going to make a difference. So I sent money back to the investors and say, hey guys, we're shutting down. And a lot of investors are like, whoa, wait, what? Why are you shutting down? I walk through, here's what we've done. Here's what we're looking at. Here was the thesis we had. It's not playing out. It just doesn't make, and there's no clear pivot. Like we looked at it, can we pivot? We tried a few things. There was no pivot that we could find that we could get excited about or we felt like made sense. So ended up shutting it down. one of the things I learned from that afterwards that was kind of an aha, but I think is relevant for entrepreneurs is make sure you understand the incentive models for the people you're asking advice from, right? And so when I would go to a lot of my more venture capital investors in that, they were like, oh, keep going, keep trying. Even if it was a 1 in 100 chance, 1 in 1,000 chance. Because to them, they've already put the money in.
That's right.
Me giving them, a third of their money back, that doesn't really help, right? Me taking a bet on 100, 1 in 100, like, sure, go ahead, but it's my time, right? I only have so much time, and all of our time is linear, right? So for them, I've already put that money in. You should keep going. And so I got a lot of advice from, not all of my investors, but a lot of my investors to kind of keep going, and it just didn't resonate. I'm like, why am I doing that? I realized afterwards, actually, from their perspective, they would want me to continue because
That's right.
even if it was a 1 in 100 chance, they would rather have that 1 in 100 chance than 30 cents on the dollar back.
Right.
But I've only have so much time for me to spend another 12 months, a year, 2 years on something because I've only have so many years to work. Made absolutely no sense.
Wow.
And so just kind of understanding, again, they're not bad people, but again, they made a very logical decision,
right,
given the incentive models that they were operating under.
So, because in that situation, that was a failure of you drop and say, I'm not doing this anymore.
Right.
Talk to me about what you pretty much talked about earlier, the identity
Yeah.
of something you were pretty much, that's a big fear of an entrepreneur, of your venture failing,
right,
and you have to like restart something different.
It was hard coming to that around, what are people going to say? Was it a failure? Obviously I've grown a lot. I've been doing it for 18 years at that point. So I've seen a lot of ups, a lot of downs. I was able to manage that much better. I was really encouraged by the response I got from everybody. And I was trying to be pretty open about it. I kind of told, I had an article in the Kansas City Business Journal and Startling News, on LinkedIn, like, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's what happened. Here's why it failed. And we're going to go on. And just the amount of, I think, respect and people just being thankful of like, hey, thanks for just being honest that it failed.
Right.
Like, you don't have to hide it. A lot of people are like, oh, we made a strategic sale. Like, no, you gave the company away. You shut it down. Like, you didn't have an exit. Like, don't call that an exit.
Right.
Like, I do get annoyed sometimes. People try to minimize a failure by calling it an exit, or like they'll sell something for $1. And they take no employees and like, that's not an exit. Just call it for what it is and move on.
So Alibaba, that conversation, did you ever go to China? What was that conversation like? And how did you end up with and tell me, what was it? Can you disclose the exact amount the deal was?
I can't disclose the exact amount. I can say it was over $100 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We raised $10 million over 4 years and sold it for over 100.
Wow. Everyone was happy.
We were very happy.
So tell me then, so that conversation, how did you get to that? Being acquired, and what was the post of that, and kind of like, what did you learn from the post of that, of being acquired and being a part of a huge company, and walk me through that? Yeah,
so we were talking with Alipay as a customer. They really liked what we were doing, and again, we're heading that actually an investment route. One of the other, actually, a couple of interesting stories around even how that whole thing happened. So this would have been 2015. So it was December of 2015.
Okay.
I'll tell you another story. Actually, this is another entrepreneurial roller coaster story. In October of 2015, we had a tier 1 VC out of San Francisco commit to lead our Series B and then back out. And it was super painful because I told my board, I told everybody, hey, we've got our Series B, they're committed, we have our lead investor. It's a name brand recognition, and was just really excited about what we were going to be able to do. So when they backed out, then everyone else is like, whoa, what's wrong? What's wrong with the company? Now we're starting to get really thin on cash. My existing investors thankfully kind of stepped up into the inside realm, but it put us in a really, really hard spot. Well, during that time, Alipay had heard that we were raising, and said, hey, we'd like to invest. In fact, we'll take the whole round. I'm like, okay, that sounds actually quite interesting. So we're going down the investment conversation. At the same time, they're doing a really deep product dive, right? Really testing it and validating, making sure it all works. And so December 9th of 2015, we get ready to get on a call with the product team that's going to say how the evaluation went. Well, the investment team says, hey, we can only invest if the product team is going to move forward because it's only strategic.
Right.
At this point, December 9th, I can make December 15th payroll. I can't make December 31st payroll. Right? 3 weeks of cash left. And I'm not sure where I could find more money. Because again, it's in December, like nothing happened in December.
Yes.
And so it was crazy, super tight. Ended up, so it's December 9th. We're getting ready to have this call. It's like 9 o'clock at our time. We're like 12 hours off. So it's the morning their time, evening our time. And I walk into the kitchen and my wife's like, hey, you ready for the call? And I literally just start crying. I'm standing in my kitchen. And just the amount of pressure and stress, like the leadership team knew, but like no one else really knew the amount of pressure and how much was riding kind of on this call. Because the call goes, well, great, Alipay will invest. If they're going to invest, all my other investors, hey, we'll put a little bit more money in so you can kind of get to a close with Alibaba. If they don't, we probably would have figured something out. But boy, at that time, I did not know what that something else would be. And so I just start weeping in my kitchen, and my wife kind of comes up and just like literally just kind of hugs me. And, I don't know how long we stood there. And she took a step back and said, hey, if this whole thing goes south, am I still going to love you? I'm like, yeah. Like, your friend's still going to love you? I'm like, yeah. God still have a plan. I'm like, I think I've heard this one before. Yeah.
sounded so familiar.
And she's like, hey, go do what God made you to do.
Wow. Yeah.
It's going to be okay. Right. And so having that kind of support from your spouse, man, that is so powerful. So we go in, we have the meeting. They love it. They want to roll forward. I go back. Hey, Alibaba product team's in. They're like, great. So they kind of send me over a term sheet. I'm able to take that to my current investors. Yeah. And they're like, hey, this is amazing. This is great. So they're able to give us a little bit of money to kind of make the end of December payroll. So first week in January is CES. So big technology show out in Vegas. I'm like, man, I really don't want to go to CES, but I probably should show up. You just never know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I end up going out, like, hey, just show up. You never know. And so I end up meeting up with a friend of mine that I knew in the industry, and I gotten to know him over the years. And he'd just taken a job with a company that did a fingerprint scanner, right? So they owned like 90% of the fingerprint scanners in Android phones, right? They just dominated. Wow. And so I told him what we're doing. Here's where we're at. Here's what we're doing. He's like, hey, would you be interested in an investment from our corporate? And I'm like, I could get these two to bid against each other. If I could get them interested in the company, I'm like, hey, we're not really interested in an investment. But if it were more like, if you want to do something more strategic, which is kind of code word for do you want to buy us? If it's something more strategic, yeah, I think we'd have to consider that. And he's like, well, I was thinking investment, but let me know. I'll go talk to the CEO and see. And he took an executive role at the company. Mm-hmm. And so I get a text a couple hours later, like, hey, I met with the CEO. Can you guys meet tomorrow morning? I'm like, my schedule just opened up.
I ain't got nothing going on.
Okay. And so we meet with him the next day. It was really clear, like, hey, we already have an investment lined up. We have a term sheet. You guys are interested in an acquisition. Would love to have that conversation, but you guys have to move crazy fast. Like, I can't push Alibaba off. He's like, no, we're serious. We're serious. And I'm like, hey, I need your team in my office next week doing diligence. And I told her, hey, here's the price range. Like, this is the price range that they're coming to invest in. You have to be higher than the investment valuation. And he's like, well, it's a little high, but between cash and stock, yeah, I think we can get there. Great, come on out. And so they came out. We had great meetings. They loved what we were doing. It fit, legit strategic fit for them. Mm-hmm. So now I got to go back and kind of play Alibaba, slow them down a little bit. And I keep my board. My board is very much in the loop, right? This isn't just me being wow. The board is in the loop. Kind of what we're doing. And so this other corporate basically gives us a term sheet to buy the company.
Right.
So now I got to go back to Alibaba, and it's like, hey, so we had a development. We had a strategic approach just out of the blue. We weren't shopping it. I was at CES. They kind of were talking to us. I've known them for a while, and they would like to buy the company. I need to put the investment conversation on hold for a while we explore this acquisition. And my guy blew up on me. He's like, what do you mean? Like, what I just said, like, I was at CES,
right?
Guy I've known for a long time, heard what we were doing. They just put in a term sheet to buy the company. And as a fiduciary responsibility, I at least have to consider it. He's like, well, we were going to do all this stuff. And like, we were they use these weird terms like get married. We were going to get married and we were going to go do all these things. And I'm like, hey, all that is true today. And it will still be true in a couple of weeks after we take a look at this. But I at least have to take a look at it.
Yeah.
He's like, well, you just made a big mistake. Hangs up. I'm like, oh, crap. I hope we just did the right thing. So, I didn't want to lose my biggest customer.
This is true.
And I mean, there's just all these things. We really rolled the dice on this one. And they, that was a few hours later. He gives me a text of, hey, can we talk tomorrow? I'm like, okay, I don't know if this is good or bad. My stomach is in crazy
It's
knots.
a roller coaster of the high end.
Oh my gosh. So again, remember, this is December 9th. I'm almost out of money.
Yes.
We're now mid-January,
Okay.
right? So we're like literally 4 weeks later.
That's right.
And so we get on the call the next day, like, hey, so we're open to an acquisition. It's much earlier than we typically do, but we get it. We understand where you're at. What kind of valuation they give you? I was like, I can't tell you the valuation, but you know what you were going to give me on my investment round. And it was going to be at least a premium to that, right? There's no way we would take something that was just the same. It would be a premium. And is like, well, can you give me a number? No, I can't give you a number. Is like, okay, well, I'll get back to you here in a few hours. I'm meeting with the investment committee. I'm like, great, you got my number. He calls back and is like, okay, I met with the investment committee. I have approval to acquire and offer this amount. It was a very nice amount. But we don't want to, we're not going to do a competitive bid. Like we don't do a bidding process. We're not going to get into a fight kind of back and forth with someone. It's an exclusive deal. And this is one of I'll never know why I said this when I did. I remember on the call, it's like, the guy's name was Kenny. They all have English names. So his English name was Kenny. It's like, Kenny, like that'll get you the deal, but I can't make an exclusive for that. Like that's a premium over what your investment valuation was. But if you want an exclusive, it's got to be a premium over the premium. Like, Toby, what's your number? It's like, I can't give you a number, Kenny. But again, if you want an exclusive, it's got to be more than this. He's like, okay, let me go talk to the investment committee. He comes back again, and offers again, very nice price.
Yes.
And he's like, but all the executives are going to be gone in a week for Chinese New Year. And you need to literally be here in 48 hours. They're like, okay, I'll see you in 48 hours.
Wow.
So then we're scrambling, getting everything done. Long story, go over to China. Joanna's like, are they going to let you come home? Like, are they going to lock you in a room somewhere? And like, no, we'll be fine. So went over and basically signed a term sheet to sell the company on February 15th.
From December, not knowing if everything's going to shut down, to selling the company
for over $100 million on February 15th, 2 months.
Wow.
So that is the roller coaster that most people emotions can't handle. Like what that does to your emotions, the psyche, while you're still running the company, right? So your company still got to keep going, right? You got to keep executing, and you got to keep, if this doesn't happen, you still got to keep an investment round in mind and what happens then. And it was, wow, holy smokes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dang. Speak of the entrepreneur adrenaline. Like this is the Rush. Toby Rush. Listen, man. Toby Rush, this is what you live for.
Yeah.
This is amazing. So now let's fast forward. We're getting to the end of the show, but let's get to Ideem.
Mm-hmm.
What does Ideem do? How did you get to that idea? What did idea start? And talk to us about. I definitely want to hear more about Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. Saudi Arabia is fine. So Ideem actually ended up being a spin-out of another a company here in town called Triple Blind. So Triple Blind, a lot of folks know. Their core technology was computing on private data. It's really, really cool stuff. They were working with auto healthcare. They had a financial services company, one of the largest. Five largest banks in the world, said, hey, we're kind of working here. We have this other little idea. Would you do a kind of a side project? And Triple Line's like, sure, we can try to help with that. They did this little side project. City's like, large bank, cut that part if you would. The kind of large bank said, hey, this is great. We want to roll this out. And the Triple like, well, that's not really a core product. What do we do? So they asked if I would come in and take a look at it. I'm like, that actually makes a ton of sense. I totally understand that. And so I was already kind of helping him Triple Blind doing some restructuring, some capital work. And like, hey, Toby, would you want to take this and spin it out into a separate company? So it was really just August of last year. So the company's only been around just over a year, but you get to start the account. We have a 5-year contract with a top 5 global bank for $multi-million per year in investment. So you get to kind of start on second base.
Wow.
I understood the market really well. And so what Ideem is doing is making 2-factor authentication easy and invisible, right? So 2-factor authentication is those annoying 6-digit codes that you get texted to log in.
Mm-hmm.
We get rid of those. There's authenticator apps like Google Auth or Google Authenticator and Authy. We get rid of those, right? And so when you can make your device specifically, a possession factor of, hey, if we can cryptographically bind your device, we know with 100% confidence it's the same device that you started with, then it makes all the security so much easier. But when you have, it's called phishable factors, so I think social engineering, phishing, the 6-digit code you get texted or put into an email, it is so easy for a bad guy to come in and find ways to steal that. Right. And so there's AI has made it far, far worse.
Wow.
Right. And so what we're doing is making kind of 2-factor authentication easy and invisible, and payments is our big focus. And so the reason I'm over in the Middle East and Saudi and UAE and Bahrain so much right now is, they are a lot of instant payments. So in the US, when we have a payment dispute, we call up Visa, hey, I didn't do that. It's a chargeback, and they just take care of it. Well, in a lot of emerging markets, it is instant payments or instant fraud. So it's not a credit card. It's coming straight out of your bank. And once it's gone, it's gone. Right? And so they do a lot of authentication up front. As an example, every single online credit card transaction that you do in all the Middle East, you get a text message to approve it. Wow. Every single time. Dang. So it's expensive. It's a ton of friction.
That's right.
And it's fraud. So we reduce the friction, fraud, and cost. And so emerging markets tends to be kind of a bigger pain point. So spent a lot of time in Saudi and the general Middle East.
So I was talking with a mentor friend of mine earlier, and they were like, I can't do what Toby does, like go through the emotional stress of being an entrepreneur over and over and over again. Tell me.
What do we do? Oh, man, even this Ideem has been harder than we thought. I mean, I thought it was going to be, honestly, a lot easier. It has been hard.
Yes.
Banks are slow. The big bank we're working with is slow. We thought they were going to start their contract this year. They're not starting it till next year. And I've asked myself that a lot, like, why am I still doing this? And I think fundamentally, I love building stuff. I love building products. I love building companies. I love building teams.
Right.
And so, my nature is as a builder.
Right.
And so I'll always be building. I tried the venture capital side for a while. I kind of done the investment. I enjoyed it, but I think I just love the operating and the building side so much more. My wife jokes that my happy place in our house is in my wood shop. I love wood product. I like building tables and benches. Yeah. And so even in my pastime, my free time, I build stuff. So just fundamentally, that's who I am.
Your brain just got to keep going. It just keeps moving. It cannot stop.
You know what I found? I totally unexpected in the woodworking. Again, I mentioned I have a very creative side to me.
Yes.
And so I love the creativity. And so you're like, what do I want to go build? How do I make it beautiful? But at the same time, the wood's got to fit together. There's an engineering aspect to where it has to fit. And so woodworking is kind of a very miniature version of entrepreneurship or software, right? And so you got to, hey, how do you envision what you want to go build?
Yes.
I tend to not build a lot off instructions. I just kind of go with it and wing it and see kind of how the part forms. It's like, we do this and let's shave this off a little bit and your brakes like, okay, let's throw that away.
So
we'll do another one.
We had IKEA then.
There's no IKEA in my wood shop. No IKEA.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So let's bring it back because I know we're crunching the time. But I want to ask this though, because you have been in entrepreneurship, you've been in the VC side of things, and I think when I talk to entrepreneurs on this show, especially the early stage, they said that investment in Kansas City is so risk averse. It's hard to get the check. And also another thing that I've heard is most investors don't tell you upfront. The Midwest nice thing. They tell you come back tomorrow, come back to the next stage. So tell you, I'm not going to do this, so you can move on. What's your perspective? What needs to happen for this ecosystem to grow?
So I come at this with 22 years of experience. It is so much better than it used to be. It used to be if you didn't have revenue or almost profitable to begin with, you couldn't get investment, right? The number of programs from, Digital Sandbox to stuff that Kaufman's doing, stuff with Keystone, and Kevin McGinnis is doing, Pipeline, Endeavor. There's so many programs now that are very legitimate, that are real help. So we have come a long ways. We can always go farther. One of the ways I like it is it's like a big flywheel. And if you push a little bit on it every day you push, you're like, man, how come this isn't going faster? Because all you see is today, the little bit you're pushing on the flywheel. But if you take a step back from 20 years, you're like, holy smokes, that flywheel's moving compared to 20 years ago.
Yes.
Right? So it doesn't always feel like it's moving really fast today. People feel like they're risk adverse. They feel like it's raising money is hard. It is so much easier than it used to. So we're getting better. Not every idea should get funded. Let's be honest.
For sure.
So, like if raising money were easy, that would be a problem, right? Like that has been a problem in cycles. When money gets too easy, you get a lot of bad ideas and people lose a lot of money. So it has to be a little more difficult. I'd say that the institutional investors, folks like, again, Flyover Capital, a KC Rise, Five Elms, or some of the getting up into the private equity side, they do a better job of being a little bit honest. What's harder is on the angel side, because they want to be nice, right? And it's this relationship side.
That's right.
And so that is a very fair criticism of angels. And you got to remember, again, the incentive models of why they're doing it is it is relational. So it's hard for them to kind of say no.
Right.
The VCs do a better job of that. Just because, again, they're professional. They're not in it for the emotion of it. They could always probably do a little bit better. So
talking to on the startup side, advice you would give a startup or a founder who is trying to raise funds but it's not working, or is trying to do this not working, what is at the core they need to be able to figure out and know if this is actually real, or they need to pivot or close it down and find something else?
Yeah, again, this is it's art in science.
Yeah.
It does take a lot of no's. You're gonna have to find, because a lot of VCs, you have to be at this size or this size, and you have to be focused on this market, and you have to have this characteristics, because VCs come with a thesis of, we want to find companies that are doing this kind of technology in these kind of markets with this profile. And if you don't fit that, it's not like they don't like you. It's just you're not a fit for them. So you got to really understand not all VCs are the same. And they literally have someone to do healthcare, someone to do med tech, someone to do B2B SaaS, someone to do cryptography or cybersecurity. So understanding, just because you're talking to a VC, you've got a 5% maybe chance of hitting their window to begin with.
Right.
So understand, don't pitch VCs.
Right.
You just don't make sense to.
Yeah.
And then it is getting enough feedback. If you're getting the exact same feedback from VC to VC to VC to VC, you got to take a step back and say, hey, is this a good idea? Maybe it's not. Again, one of the things I am really excited about with AI, because one of the big questions that VCs have is there a market here to begin with? Do you have a product that can meet the market? What's the product market fit? You can build MVPs really cheap, right? It doesn't have to be full featured. It doesn't have to have everything in there. Build something that customers will use and give you feedback. That going to a VC is so different than going to them with a napkin and a PowerPoint and say, no, trust me, this problem is real. Like, go build something.
Yes. Okay.
Right? You no longer have the excuse of it takes $50,000 of paying an engineer to go build something. No, it takes a few weeks and a couple $100.
That's right.
And you can go build something.
Okay. Sweet. Man, Toby, thank you so much for sharing your story on the show, but also giving us some insights. I think it's very important as a young entrepreneur, as a founder who you have a lot of experience you can be able to share for us, because we know you have that validation. But I think also in a space like KC, where I feel like everyone knows everyone, you kind of have to prove your concept and be that person. So thank you for being here, so to say.
Thank you for doing what you're doing, getting the message out, giving people a platform, giving a story. It's important.
Yeah. I mean, also, maybe my last question is this. So in KC, and I've been in the ecosystem maybe way less than you have been in the ecosystem. And I feel like most times this is why I think we're losing a lot of talent. Most times when our founders who are in KC try to raise funds, trying to do this or do that, they have to often leave KC to raise better funding to be able to come back. Or sometimes they don't even come back, they just stay there because it's not good for them to come back. What do you think should happen for that to be exchanged? Or you think that's just fair? If it's not for you, it's not for you? Or what is your perspective?
Yeah. Obviously, we want to keep talent wherever we can. Yes. We want to get good ideas and good people funded wherever we can. It's going to happen. There's always going to be stories of, I was a little bit unique. I mean, I had a lot of pressure to leave, and raise capital and go to San Francisco and make it easier. Even when Alibaba acquired us, they wanted me to move to Hong Kong or Singapore. And we actually considered it for maybe a shorter term, 6 months or a year type of deal. So I think it is a real problem. It's always going to be a problem. It's never going to be zero. I think you fight the battles you can win. Breaking is going to continue to happen. And the best thing that we can do is build a better ecosystem. Right? So don't hate on the people that have left. Like, build a better ecosystem. Find ways and reasons that people want to stay and can stay, and build great companies.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely, you said it right. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yep.
For those who are watching from home, man, it's been another episode. Like I told you, this was packed with information, packed with stories, insights, and you know what to do. We're on this show. It's your boy Zeke Wanganga. Subscribe, share, let people know that we are here in Kansas City. And I'll see you guys on this episode. Bye for now. How?
I'm dripping, it's working. Around the clock, I get to it. Don't take no breaks, I just do it. Just watch me.